Hi, this is Vashi Nedomansky. I'm a film editor based out of Los Angeles, and I wanted to first of all welcome you and thank you for taking part in my post-production quick course, which consists of 10 videos and also a 69-page PDF that will go further into depth into all the topics that we're going to talk about over the next 10 weeks. I would also like to thank Dell and NVIDIA for providing this powerhouse mobile workstation, which will be given away at the conclusion of this 10-week course. Color correction is a really important part of the process, and more today, it falls upon the editor to do a lot of this color correction. Now, I want to distinguish between color correction and color grading because every film will need both. As the film editor, the color correction I do is basically balancing the shots, and especially shots that stand out that have a different color temperature or just look out of whack and will take the viewer out of the moment. So the first thing that I want to do when preparing for this is to set up my workspace. Built into Premiere, I use the color workspace, which gives me the tools like Lumetri panel and the Lumetri scopes, and sets up my timeline in a way that I can interact with the footage and see everything properly. For proper balancing and assessment of colors, I'll set up both the vector scope, YUV, and the waveforms in RGB. The waveforms start at the bottom here. 0 is pure black, and 100 at the top is pure white. Everything that falls in between is a mixture of red, green, and blue and the luminance, and it's represented here. And it matches whatever is on my output monitor. These are linked and give you direct feedback. The vector scope on the right shows the distribution and saturation of all the colors. These two scopes give me the real-time feedback I need to play back my edit and make sure everything looks correct. When I select any clip in the timeline, it'll activate the Lumetri color panel, which gives me access to all the individual sliders and tools I need. There's actually 6 different windows within that panel, but I prefer to use just the Lumetri basic corrections panel to do most of my work. If you use Lightroom or Photoshop, it should look very familiar. On 6 Below, we were using the 6K red RAW files, so it was important to have real-time playback between the Lumetri panel and the Lumetri scopes. Definitely the powerful Dell Precision workstation and my NVIDIA Quattro GPU kept everything in real time, even though we were dealing with a massive amount of information. Here's my process for color correction before I color grade, and I've done this on all of the 9 feature films that I've both color corrected and color graded. I'm going to use this video clip from a BTS of 6 Below where I'm editing, and they shot it in a log, kind of low contrast format. You can see that there's no blacks down at the zeros, and there's nothing up at around 100. There's nothing that bright in the image. So the first thing I want to do is I'll try auto. You know, it's built in, but what you see it does is it raises everything. It does change the color temperature and make some adjustments, but it's not really realistic. It's not really good. So I want to go and do this manually. First thing I'll do is do the white balance. I'll click on the eyedropper and pick on something white in my image. You can see that the temperature got moved up by about 5 or 6% towards orange to give it a little more healthy color, but it hasn't adjusted the blacks or the whites yet. So I'll drop the blacks with the black slider until the bottom of my waveforms hit around 0. If I go too far, it'll crush it and it'll be too contrasty. At the top, I'll open up the highlights, which includes the upper end of the spectrum of light, and push that open a bit to give myself a little more visibility. And then here I'll take the exposure, which I'll bump up again. That brings some of the mids into play and just opens up the image. It's important to note that when I raise the highs or the mids, I have to boost up the saturation to compensate and maintain that good clarity of color and a nice saturated image. Now I can toggle on and off the actual entire Lumetri color panel with the FX button here at the top, and I can see that it's a lot more saturated, a lot more contrasty. I can see more into the shadows, and the brights now have a little bit of value. So you can see here at the bottom, my blacks have been pushed down, my middle has been opened up, and maybe my high end, my whites are a little too hot. So I'll grab the white slider and bring down just the absolute whites. So they're not clipping, they're not past 100, and they're within the broadcast normal range that we would want. So it's visible and pleasing. Always trust your scopes, as they are an accurate representation of the values of both color and luminance. And you can see here that my starting point to where I am now took me about 30 seconds, but makes a huge difference and is repeatable for all other shots. For more complicated projects, my friend and fellow filmmaker Stu Maschwitz made this order of operations list, which tells you exactly which step to do in the process of color correction and color grading. Definitely print this out and keep it close by. Chapter 7 in the PDF goes into greater detail about all these processes and procedures, but just know that color correction and color grading can help emotionally tell the story while maintaining a consistent visual look that'll carry over through your entire project. Make sure to download the 10-chapter PDF so you can have access and reference and have all the specifics that I've been discussing. So thank you for taking the time to join me. I shall see you next week for the next chapter. Until then, stay safe and be kind to one another.